made eye contact with Mark and thought he might try to help me, but he did not. During this assault, Mark came over and jumped on the bed twice while Brett was on top of me. And the last time that he did this, we toppled over and Brett was no longer on top of me. I was able to get up and run out of the room. Directly across from the bedroom was a small bathroom. I ran inside the bathroom and locked the door. I waited until I heard Brett and Mark leave the bedroom, laughing, and loudly walk down the narrow stairway, pinballing off the walls on the way down. I waited, and when I did not hear them come back up the stairs, I left the bathroom, went down the same stairwell, through the living room, and left the house. I remember being on the street and feeling an enormous sense of relief that I had escaped that house and that Brett and Mark were not coming outside after me. Brett's assault on me drastically altered my life. For a very long time, I was too afraid and ashamed to tell anyone these details. I did not want to tell my parents that I, at age 15, was in a house without any parents present, drinking beer with boys. I convinced myself that because Brett did not rape me, I should just move on and just pretend that it didn't happen. Over the years, I told very, very few friends that I had this traumatic experience. I told my husband before we were married that I had experienced a sexual assault. I had never told the details to anyone, the specific details, until May 2012 during a couples counseling session.
With a psychotherapist, not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist.
My husband and I had completed a very extensive, very long remodel of our home, and I insisted on a second front door, an idea that he and others disagreed with and could not understand. In explaining why I wanted a second front door, I began to describe the assault in detail. I recall saying that the boy who assaulted me could someday be on the U.S. Supreme Court and spoke a bit about his background at an elitist all-boys school in Bethesda, Maryland. My husband recalls that I named my attacker as Brett Kavanaugh.
Like she was hypnotized.
After that May 2012 therapy session, I did my best to ignore the memories of the assault because recounting them caused me to relive the experience and caused panic and anxiety. Occasionally, I would discuss the assault in an individual therapy session, but talking about it caused more reliving of the trauma, so I tried not to think about it or discuss it. But over the years, I went through periods where I thought about the attack. I had confided in some close friends that I had had an experience with sexual assault. Occasionally, I stated that my assailant was a prominent lawyer or judge, but I did not use his name. I do not recall each person I spoke to about Brett's assault, and some friends have reminded me of these conversations since the publication of the Washington Post story on September 16, 2018. But until July 2018, I had never named Mr. Kavanaugh as my attacker outside of therapy. This changed in early July 2018.
Don't believe
I
it.
saw press reports stating
I believe her.
Kavanaugh was on
But the whole process, this whole psychotherapy stuff,
Supreme Court
research it. Remember, this is what my sister does for a living, or did. She's disowned the whole family since because she blames us for these memories she has of stuff that we did. See, that's a psychotherapist. Very different from psychologist,
psychologist. To the Senate and the president as soon as possible before a nominee was selected. I did not know how specifically to do this. I called my
It's interesting to note, I think, that
her receptionist
her timid voice just kind of seems to remain the same all the way through. I don't know.
I also sent a message to the encrypted Washington Post confidential tip line. I did not use my name, but I provided the names of Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge. I stated that Mr. Kavanaugh had assaulted me in the 1980s in Maryland. This was an extremely hard thing for me to do, but I felt that I couldn't not do it. Over the next 2 days, I told a couple of close friends on the beach in Aptos, California, that Mr. Kavanaugh had sexually assaulted me. I was very conflicted as to whether to speak out. On July 9th, I received a return phone call from the office of Congresswoman Anna Eshoo after Mr. Kavanaugh had become the nominee. I met with her staff on July 18th and with her on July 20th, describing the assault and discussing my fears about coming forward. Later, we discussed the possibility of sending a letter to Ranking Member Feinstein, who is one of my state senators, describing what occurred. My understanding is that Representative Eshoo's office delivered a copy of my letter to Senator Feinstein's office on July 30th. The letter included my name, but also a request that it be kept confidential. My hope was that providing the information confidentially would be sufficient to allow the Senate to consider Mr. Kavanaugh's serious misconduct without having to make myself, my family, or anyone's family vulnerable to the personal attacks and invasions of privacy that we have faced since my name became public. In a letter dated August 31st, Senator Feinstein wrote that she would not share the letter without my explicit consent, and I appreciated this commitment. Sexual assault victims should be able to decide for themselves when and whether their private experience is made public. As the hearing date got closer, I struggled with a terrible choice. Do I share the facts with the Senate and put myself and my family in the public spotlight? Or do I preserve our privacy and allow the Senate to make its decision without knowing the full truth of his past behaviors?
I remember the people who actually like dated Kavanaugh and the known girlfriends and friends of him have said they've never even heard of these people.
To the Washington Post and to Anna Eshoo's office when there was still a list of extremely qualified candidates, and to Senator Feinstein was always there. But my fears of the consequences of speaking out started to exponentially increase. During August 2018, the press reported that Mr. Kavanaugh's confirmation was virtually certain. Persons painted him as a champion of women's rights and empowerment. And I believed that if I came forward, my single voice would be drowned out by a chorus of powerful supporters. By the time of the confirmation hearings, I had resigned myself to remaining quiet and letting the committee and the Senate make their decision without knowing what Mr. Kavanaugh had done to me. Once the press started reporting on the existence of the letter I had sent to Senator Feinstein, I faced mounting pressure. Reporters appeared at my home and at my workplace, demanding information about the letter in the presence of my graduate students. They called my bosses and coworkers and left me many messages, making it clear that my name would inevitably be released to the media. I decided to speak out publicly to a journalist who had originally responded to the tip I had sent to the Washington Post and who had gained my trust. It was important for me to describe the details of the assault in
Washington
my own
Post to trust.
Since September 16th, the date of the Washington Post story, I have experienced an outpouring of support from people in every state of this country. Thousands and thousands of people who have had their lives dramatically altered by sexual violence have reached out to share their experience and have thanked me for coming forward. We have received tremendous support from our friends and our community. At the same time, my greatest fears have been realized, and the reality has been far worse than what I expected. My family and I have been the target of constant harassment and death threats, and I have been called the most vile and hateful names imaginable. These messages, while far fewer
which is something that
of support,
I wouldn't do. I don't know. People are so mean these days. People are so stupid.
Have posted my personal information and that
Take
of my
the goddamn
parents
internet away from some of these people. Internet. Sorry, bye-bye.
This has resulted in additional emails, calls, and threats.
I can't insult people anymore.
My family and I were forced to move out of our home. Since September 16th, my family and I have been visiting in various secure locales, at times separated and at times together, with the help of security guards. This past Tuesday evening, my work email was hacked and messages were sent out trying to recant my description of the sexual assault. Apart from the assault itself, these past couple of weeks have been the hardest of my life. I've had to relive this trauma in front of the world, and I've seen my life picked apart by people on television, on Twitter, other social media, other media, and in this body who have never met me or spoken with me. I have been accused of acting out of partisan political motives. Those who say that do not know me. I am an independent person and I am no one's pawn. My motivation in coming forward was to be helpful and to provide facts about how Mr. Kavanaugh's actions have damaged my life so that you could take into a serious consideration as you make your decision about how to proceed. It is not my responsibility to determine whether Mr. Kavanaugh deserves to sit on the Supreme Court. My responsibility is to tell you the truth. I understand that a professional prosecutor has been hired to ask me questions, and I'm committed to doing my very best to answer them. I have never been questioned by a prosecutor, and I will do my best. At the same time, because the committee members will be judging my credibility, I do hope to be able to engage directly with each of you. And at this point, I will do my best to answer your questions and would request some caffeine.
A Coke or something?
That sounds good. Great.
At least she did.
Thank you.
Request some cocaine or something. Hey, wait a minute.
Before I use my 5 minutes.
Here comes Chuck Grassley. This is a station.
I thought that I'd try to remind my colleagues,
He's so bad.
and in this case, Miss Mitchell as well, that the 5 minutes, the way I traditionally have done, if you ask a question before your time runs out, and even though you go over your time, as long as you aren't filibustering, I'll let you ask your question.
What's filibustering?
Make sure that both,
it means going on and on like Obama and you know, these people in a session.
Judge Kavanaugh, as chairman of the committee, I know that they're going to get a chance to answer the questions fully beyond that 5 minutes. But when either Dr. Ford or Judge Kavanaugh gets done, then we immediately go to the next person. So I hope that that will be done in a, Dr. Ford, I'm told that you want a break right now, and if you do, that's fine.
Will you clear your throat?
I got the coffee. Thank you very much.
I hate it when people talk with a frog and they still take. I just like it. Excuse me, will you clear your throat for me?
So you're pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
So now, with that, Ms. Mitchell, you have my 5 minutes to ask questions.
Good morning, Dr. Ford.
Hi.
We haven't met. My name is Rachel Mitchell.
Nice to meet you.
I just wanted to tell you the first thing that struck me from your statement this morning was that you were terrified. And I just wanted to let you know I'm very sorry. That's not right. I know this is stressful, and so I would like to set forth some guidelines that maybe will alleviate that a little bit. If I ask you a question that you don't understand, please ask me to clarify it or ask it in a different way. When I ask questions, sometimes I'll refer back to other information you've provided. If I do that and I get it wrong, please correct me.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask you to guess. I know it was a long time ago. If you do estimate, please let me know that you're estimating, okay?
Fair.
Okay. we've put before you, and I'm sure you have copies of them anyway, 5 pieces of information, and I wanted to go over them. The first is a screenshot of a WhatsApp texting between you and somebody at the Washington Post. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
The first 2 texts were sent by you on July 6th, is that correct?
Correct.
And then the last one sent by you was on July 10th?
Correct.
Okay. Are those 3 comments accurate?
I will read them, yes.
Take your time.
So
Her lawyer's
there's
going,
one
just say yes,
correction.
just say yes.
Okay.
I've misused the word bystander.
Aha!
Adjective.
Okay.
Bystander means someone that is looking at an assault, and the person named PJ was not technically a bystander. I was writing very quickly with a sense of urgency, so I would not call him a bystander.
Urgency, but Dianne Feinstein said, don't rush it.
He was a tall and
Oh,
very
sure,
nice
she can
person.
rush
I
it, but
didn't know
we
him well,
can't.
but he was downstairs, not anywhere near the event.
Okay. Thank you
So
for,
I'd like to take that word out if it's possible.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. The
All
second
smiles.
is the letter that you wrote to Senator Feinstein dated the July 30th.
Telling you, we need
this
Judge
year.
Judy in here.
Did you write the letter yourself?
I did.
And since it's dated July 30th, did you write it on that date?
I believe so. It sounds right.
No, I wrote it
in
last
Delaware at the
Christmas.
time. I could look into my calendar and try to figure that out.
Was it written
seems-
on or about that date?
Yes, yes. I traveled, I think, the 26th of July to Rehoboth, Delaware, so that makes sense because I wrote it from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Is the letter accurate?
I'll take a minute to read
Okay.
it. So I can read fast.
Take your time.
Okay.
Oh, you can read fast, but your memory is a little sketchy. Huh. Oh. This is going to be a long day. So we're watching the hearings, folks. Hi, I'm Donald Trump. And I'm hoping that we can take apart this con game, okay, that the Democrats are trying to do here. It's a con game, okay? Total con game. This woman does not appear to me to be, I mean, she uses Brett Kavanaugh and then this other guy, Mark, whatever. She just, she looks a mess. Well, of course, look what she was been through. Well,
Okay. So I have 3 areas that I'd like to address.
Okay.
In the second paragraph, where it says the assault occurred in a suburban Maryland area home
Yes.
at a gathering that included me and 4 others. I can't guarantee that there weren't a few other people there, but they are not in my purview of my memory.
like maybe
Would it be fair to
10,
say there were at
20.
least 4 others?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
What's the second correction?
Oh, okay. The next sentence begins with Kavanaugh physically pushed me into the bedroom. I would say I can't promise that Mark Judge didn't assist with that. I don't know. It was pushed from behind, so I don't want to put that solely on him.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Mitchell, I don't know whether this is fair for me to interrupt, but I want to keep people within 5 minutes. Is that a major problem for you in the middle of a question? Because I've got to treat everybody the same.
I understand that.
Can I go to Senator Feinstein, or do you?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't see the light
Okay.
was red. Please do.
Senator Feinstein.
Uh-oh.
I didn't get
Uh-oh.
So we're going to come.
Dems are going to be all over that. He interrupted her
okay.
Fast.
Yeah.
just when she was getting her good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. When she comes through, after Feinstein is done, she'll
I-
come back and she'll ask you about the other two things. So we'll get back.
For the benefit of Dr. Ford, I think she'll continue that after the 5 minutes here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to begin by putting
Right
some
in the
letters
middle of her
on the record.
answer.
Without objection, so ordered.
I'm
If
Chuck
you want to tell me-
Gracely, and I really...
140 letters from friends and neighbors of the witness and 1,000 female physicians across the country. Those are what the letters are.
Don't look at this.
I want to thank you very much for your testimony. I know how very, very hard it is. Why have you held it to yourself all these years? As you look back, can you indicate what the reasons are?
Well, I haven't held it in all these years. I did disclose it in the confines of therapy, where I felt like it was
that was 2012
to cope with the sequelae of the event.
Well, can you tell us what impact the events had on you?
Well, I think that the sequelae of sexual assault varies by person. So for me personally, anxiety, phobia, and PTSD-like symptoms are the types of things that I've been coping with. So more specifically, claustrophobia, panic, and that type of thing.
Is that the reason for the second door, front door?
Correct.
Is claustrophobia?
Correct. It doesn't, our house does not look aesthetically pleasing from the curb.
I see. And do you have that second front door?
Yes.
You
Yes. It now is a place to host Google interns because we live near Google, so we get to have other
Google.
students can live.
Can you tell us
Hardcore,
is there any other way
liberal.
this has affected your life?
Here we go.
The primary impact was in the initial 4 years after the event. I struggled academically. I struggled very much in Chapel Hill and in college. When I was 17 and went off to college, I had a very hard time, more so than others, forming new friendships and especially friendships with boys. And I had academic problems.
Yeah, so did I. It's called ADD.
What were the when we spoke and it became very clear how deeply you felt about this and the need that you wanted to remain confidential. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I was watching carefully throughout the summer. Well, my original intent, I just want to remind, was to communicate with everyone when there was still a list of candidates who all seemed to be, just from my perspective, from what I could read, equally qualified. And I was in a hurry to try to get the information forward, but didn't quite know how to do that. However, once he was selected and it seemed like he was popular and that it was a sure vote, I was calculating daily the risk-benefit for me of coming forward and wondering whether I would just be jumping in front of a train that was headed to where it was headed anyway, and that I would just be personally annihilated.
How did you decide to come forward?
Not as a liberal, you wouldn't have thought that way.
Reporters were sitting outside of my home.
We notice how they think that when they show up to protest, don't they? They don't care about any train.
The dog down, and a reporter appeared in my graduate classroom, and I mistook her for a student, and she came up to ask me a question, and I thought that she was a student, and it turned out that she was a reporter. So at that point, I felt like enough was enough. People were calling my colleagues at Stanford and leaving messages on their voicemails and on their email saying that they knew my name. Clearly, people knew my address because they were out in front of my house. And it just, the mounting pressure, it seemed like it was time to just say what I needed to say.
I'm sorry.
You know, the problem with this is she appears so timid, and even though she's a PhD and all this stuff, she's so... I think they're setting this whole thing up so that
you are very clear
nobody is going to feel comfortable cross-examining her.
Into the room, you say you don't know.
Remember, because I said that last week or something in a show. I was like,
Kavanaugh.
if anybody successfully cross-examines her and has a gotcha moment, the Dems are going to go, so mean to her. You were so mean.
How are you so sure that it was he?
How are you sure?
The same way that I'm sure that I'm talking to you right now. It's just basic memory functions.
Will you get the hair out of your glasses? This is driving me crazy.
norepinephrine and epinephrine in the brain that sort of, as you know, encodes, that neurotransmitter encodes memories into the hippocampus, and so the trauma-related experience then is kind of locked there, whereas other details kind of drift.
So what you are telling us is this could not be a case of mistaken identity.
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's new one.
Mitchell for Senator.
Chuck Grassley, would you please get the hair out of your glasses?
When we were stopped, you were going to tell us a third correction that you wanted to make on.
Well, that's going to bug me all day if she keeps that there.
Senator Feinstein.
It wasn't a correction, but I just wanted to comment on it since we were looking at this letter.
What the hell?
That I did see Mark Judge once at the Potomac Village Safeway after the time of the attack. And it would be helpful with anyone's resources to figure out when he worked there. If people are wanting more details from me about when the attack occurred, if we could find out when he worked there, then I could provide a more detailed timeline as to when the attack
Mark
occurred.
Judge, you mean the guy that did Beavis and Butthead?
So that is not a correction in your statement?
It's just, no.
Okay.
No, it's Mark. Oh,
You
gotcha.
also wrote out a handwritten statement for the polygrapher when you took your polygraph test. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I see corrections on that where you crossed out. So I will go on to the Washington Post article that was originally published on September 16th of this year.
If you could please just get the hair.
We may come back to it if you
Okay.
need to refer to it.
Okay.
On the Washington Post article, did you submit to an interview by a reporter with the Washington Post for that article to be written?
Correct.
Okay. And then finally was the statement that you provided this morning. I assume that to the best of your recollection that was accurate.
That this whole article is accurate?
No. The statement that you made this morning.
Yes.
Okay. I want
Be
to
a
talk
problem
to
if she
you
said no,
about
wouldn't it?
the day
No,
that this happened, leading up to the gathering.
Okay.
In your statement this morning, have you told us everything that you remember about the day leading up to that?
Yes.
Let me ask just a few questions to make sure that you've thought of everything, okay?
Covered everything.
You indicated that you were at the country club swimming that day?
That's my best estimate of how this could have happened.
Okay. And when you say best estimate, is that based on the fact that you said you went there pretty much every day?
Estimate.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall prior to getting there?
Get the hair.
I'm only talking about up to the gathering.
Okay.
Had you had anything to drink?
Not at all.
Were you on any
Not
sort of
water,
medication?
nothing.
None.
Okay. Do you recall
Cocaine.
knowing before you went?
A hit of
who was going to be
acid.
at that
Did you?
gathering?
I recall that expecting that Mark Judge and Leland would be at that gathering.
Okay. Do you recall an expectation
Oh,
that
she
Brett
finally got
Kavanaugh
it.
would be there?
I
Yay.
don't recall whether.
No,
or
she
not
didn't get it completely. She's incompetent, I can tell you.
Now, let's talk about
She's incompetent,
the
folks.
gathering.
Incompetent. She can't even clear the hair out,
From the time
right?
you
Believe me.
arrived
Something wrong
till
here.
Right when you went up the stairs, just that period of time, okay? What was the atmosphere like at the gathering?
Mr. Kavanaugh and Mr. Judge were extremely inebriated. They had clearly been drinking prior, and the other people at the party were not. The living
Can
room
I
was.
ask you just to follow up on that? When you said it was clear that they had been drinking prior,
What made it
do you
clear?
mean prior to the time you had gotten there or prior to the time they had arrived?
Prior to the time that they arrived. I don't recall who arrived first, though, whether it was me or them.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. So I recall that I can sketch a floor plan. I recall that it was a sparsely furnished, fairly modest living room. And it was not really a party, like the news has made it sound. It was not. It was just a gathering that I assumed was going to lead to a party later on that those boys would attend, because they tended to have parties later at night than I was allowed to stay out. So it was kind of a pre-gathering.
Was it loud?
No, not in the living room.
So she remembers all that, but
the music that you've
she doesn't recall if she was at the country club or whatever.
Bedroom, was there any other music or television or anything like that that was adding?
No.
Okay, so there wasn't a stereo playing downstairs?
No.
Okay.
Senator Leahy.
Dr. Ford, thank you for being here. Mr. Chairman, you know, the way to make
She's finally getting, I got a thing here.
Is to do what we've always done.
You're a disheveled mess.
Our nominee comes to light. To use your words this morning, you want to reach the truth. The easy way to do that, ask the FBI to investigate. This is what we've always done. Let them investigate.
What are they going to find? That's not what they do.
The serious allegations.
Shut the hell up with this crap.
Deborah Ramirez and Julie Sweatman.
That's what's going to happen after all of this today.
Nonpartisan professional investigation.
Batman, after all of this today, no matter what, they're going to still say, well, we still want an FBI investigation.
Chairman, you and I were both here 27 years ago. At that time, the Senate failed.
This won't be the end all.
I said I believed her, but I'm concerned that we're doing a lot less for these three women today. That's my personal view. Now, Dr. Ford, no matter what happens with this hearing today.
See, they're never happy.
No matter what happens with this nomination, I know, and I hear from so many of my own.
Because it's a con job. It's a con job,
millions
folks.
of victims and survivors out there who've been inspired by your courage. I am. Bravery is contagious. Indeed, that's the driving force behind the Me Too movement. And you sharing your story is going to have a lasting, positive impact on so many survivors in our country.
Either that or it's going to bring out a lot of nut jobs that are a bunch of liars.
Now, some senators have suggested you were simply mixed up about who assaulted you. An ally of Judge Kavanaugh in the White House even promoted a wild theory about a Kavanaugh lookalike. You immediately rejected that theory, as did the innocent man who had been called that lookalike. In fact, he sent a letter to this committee forcefully rejecting this absurd theory, and I ask consent to enter that in the record. Without objection. Now, how did you know Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge? And is it possible that you would mix them up with somebody else?
Absolutely not. No, it is not. And the person that was blamed for the incident is actually the person who introduced me to them originally. So he was a member of Columbia Country Club, and I don't want to talk about him because I think it's unfair, but he is the person that introduced me to them.
Why not? Throw him into the party.
You would not mix up somebody else with Brett Kavanaugh, is that correct?
Correct.
Or Mark Judge?
Correct.
Well, then let's go back to the incident. What is the strongest memory you have? The strongest memory of the incident, something that you cannot forget. Take whatever time you need.
Indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, and they're having fun at my expense.
You've never forgotten that laughter. You've never forgotten them laughing at you.
They were laughing with each other.
Just trying to paint this picture of the boys. You know what I mean?
I was, underneath one of them.
Yeah, all right, dude. Yeah.
Two friends having a really good time with one another.
Exactly. Right.
Let me enter into the record a statement by the National Task Force to End Domestic Violence.
Without objection, so ordered.
And a letter from 24 members of the House of Representatives urging the committee to use the NTF's trauma-informed approach in questioning Dr. Ford. And a letter from another 116 members of the House asking to delay till all this has been heard.
Without objection, so ordered.
And Dr. Ford has at times been criticized for what she doesn't remember from 36 years ago. But we have numerous experts, including a study by the U.S. Army Military Police School Behavior Sciences Education, that lapses of memory are wholly consistent with severe trauma and stress of assault. I'd ask consent that be entered.
Without objection, so ordered.
And Dr. Ford, I'll just conclude with this. You do remember what happened, do you not?
Very much so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Now, Ms. Mitchell, for
Isn't
Senator
that different
Graham,
than
and
what she
then
was saying
my
a while back?
understanding
I'm
that,
not really
that
sure.
That's where you'd like to take a break.
Does that work for you? Does that work for you as well?
We're here to accommodate you, not you
thank you.
accommodate us.
I'm used to being collegial. So.
Okay, go ahead. Ms. Mitchell for Senator Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Collegial.
You told Senator Feinstein in your letter that you and 4 others were present. You've corrected that today to say it was at least 4 others. When you were interviewed by the Washington Post, you said that there were 4 boys present at the party. And then in your polygraph statement, you say there were 4 boys and 2 girls. When you say 2 girls, was that you and another, or was that 2 other girls?
That was me and 1 other girl.
And that other girl's name?
Leland.
Leland Kaiser now?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, she said you're a liar.
So then would it be fair to say at least PJ, Brett Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, Leland Ingram at the time, and yourself were present, and possibly others?
And one other boy. So there were 4 boys. I just don't know the name of the other boy. So.
Have you been contacted by anybody saying, hey, I was at that party too?
No, I haven't talked with anyone from that party.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Now, you've
well, we
been
have.
detailed about what happened once you got
And they said you're.
upstairs, and so I don't need to go through that again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just realized that I said something that was inaccurate. I said I hadn't spoken with anyone from the party since that. I've spoken with Leland.
Okay. Thank you for correcting that. I
thank you.
appreciate that. You've gone into detail about what happened once you went up the stairs.
Well, where
so
is
I
she?
don't feel like it's necessary to go over those things again.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have you told us everything that you do remember about it?
I believe so, but if there are other questions, I can attempt to answer them.
Okay.
Oh, well, another thing.
You said that the music
They had
was
guns and
solely
knives.
coming from that room. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it was turned up once the 3 of you were inside that room. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the music went up when they
At some
grabbed her
point,
and
do you
threw her in
recall it
there.
being turned down.
It's like in a movie.
I don't remember if it was turned down once I was leaving the house. I don't remember.
Okay.
Likely, since I could hear them walking down the stairs very clearly from the bathroom.
Okay. And the bathroom door was closed when you heard this. Is that correct?
I could hear them very clearly hitting the walls, going down the stairwell.
Or
In
pinballing,
fact,
as she
in your
said.
letter, you said that they went down the stairs and they were talking with other people in the house.
Correct.
Were you able to hear that conversation?
I was not able to hear that conversation, but I was aware that they were downstairs and that I would have to walk past them to get out of the house.
Okay. Now, let me make sure we're on the same page. Were you not able to hear the conversation or not able to understand the conversation?
I couldn't hear the conversation. I was upstairs.
Okay. How do you know there was a conversation?
I'm just assuming since it was a social gathering, people were talking. I don't know.
Okay.
I
In your
could
letter,
hear them
you-
talking as they went down the stairwell. They were laughing and
Okay. In your letter,
I heard
you wrote
like
both
blah, blah,
loudly
blah,
stumbled
blah, blah,
down the
you know.
stairwell, at which point other persons at the house were talking with them. Does that ring a bell?
yes, I had to walk past everyone to leave the house. So
Okay.
I'm not,
In your
maybe
letter,
I'm not understanding. I'm sorry.
okay. Your next sentence, let me try to clarify this. After you said other persons at the house were talking with them, the letter goes on with the very next sentence. I exited the bathroom, ran outside of the house, and went home.
Correct.
Okay.
How do you know you went home? Well, I just
You
assumed
said
that I
you do
did.
not remember how you got home. Is that correct?
I do not remember,
Okay.
other than I did not drive home.
Okay. I'm going to show you if somebody could
A lot
provide
of
to you a map.
gaps. This is like a
of
bad
various
hard drive.
People's houses at the time, and if you could verify that this is
It is.
where you were living at the time.
Where I was living at the time?
Yes.
I don't recall.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a copy of these documents?
You do not have a copy,
Yes,
but I'll
before the
get you one
questions begin,
after
so
the
we can follow
session.
the testimony.
Okay. My staff says that we should not provide the copy.
No, we will provide the
Oh,
We will provide the copy.
yeah, well, speak plainly with me, please.
Oh, sure. I'd
No,
like
not-
to see
not
what
you.
she's looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, you have another 30 seconds now because I was rudely interrupted.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Senator Harris, we do have a.
There's that
blown-up
dickhead
copy
White
of this
House.
for
Ew,
members to
what
look
an
at, if
ass.
That's helpful.
Okay, I'm going to put check marks next to homes that I can confirm are the correct locations, and then an X or a question mark when I don't know where these people live,
I'm only asking you to confirm if that map accurately shows where you were living at the
where
time.
I lived at the time. So I can't see the street name, but I'm happy
not
to
sure.
refer to the address or the neighborhood.
Okay, could you tell us that?
Yes, it's River Falls.
Okay.
It's near the, what is the place called? The Naval Research Center on Clara Barton Parkway.
Okay, was that a house or an apartment?
It was at my parents' home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Durbin.
Mr. Chairman, I ask consent to enter into the record letters of support for Dr. Ford from her classmates at Holton Arms School, 1,200 alumni of the school, 195 of your colleagues, students, and mentors, 1,400 women and men who attended DC schools, and 50 members of the Yale Law School faculty who are calling for a full FBI investigation. I ask consent to enter these into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Dr. Ford, as difficult as this
See, here we
experience
go.
must be, I want you to know
Told you.
courage in coming forward has given countless Americans the strength to face their own life-shattering past and to begin to heal their wounds. By example, you have brought many families into an honest and sometimes
What is
painful
the time?
dialogue that should have occurred a long time ago.
Bloody hell.
I'm sorry for what this has done to you and your family. No one should face harassment, death threats, and disparaging comments by cheap-shot politicians simply for telling the truth.
Oh, you'd know
You and your
about
family
that.
should know that for every scurrilous charge and every pathetic tweet, there have been thousands of Americans, women and men, who believe you, support you, and thank you for your courage.
Don't forget the ones who don't
Watching
believe
your
her.
experience, it's no wonder.
But they
that
always
many
forget
sexual
those, right?
assault survivors
Because
hide
it's a
their
con
past
job.
and spend their
It's a
lives
con job,
suffering
right?
in
Con
pain
job.
silence. You had absolutely nothing to gain by bringing these facts to the Senate Judiciary.
Yes, she does. She works for Google
The
for
fact
crying
that
out
you are
loud.
testifying here
Or,
today,
you know what I mean.
terrified though you may be, the fact that you have called for an FBI investigation of this incident, the fact that you are prepared to name both Judge Kavanaugh and eyewitness Mark Judge stands in sharp contrast to the obstruction we've seen on the other side. The FBI should have investigated your charges as they did in the Anita Hill hearing, but they did not. Mark Judge should be subpoenaed from his Bethany Beach hideaway and required to testify under oath, but he has not. Judge Kavanaugh, if he truly believes there's no evidence, no witnesses that can prove your case, should be joining us in demanding a thorough FBI investigation, but he has not. Today, you come before this committee and before this nation alone. I know you're joined by
You know, the
counsel.
FBI have stated themselves that
Prosecutor, on
What
the
would they
Republican
do?
side, will continue
That's
to
not what
ask
they do.
questions to test your memory
they've
and
done
veracity.
6
After
investigations.
spending
on
decades
Kavanaugh
trying to forget
already.
that awful night, it's no wonder your recollection is
How many
less
has
than
she had?
perfect. A polished liar can create a seamless
A 0.
story, but a trauma survivor cannot be expected to remember every painful detail. That's what Senator
Right, and
Blasey
that's the
mentioned
key
earlier.
here. Cannot be
One
expected to
question's
remember
clear.
every key detail. Things might be
In
sketchy,
Judge Kavanaugh's
so
opening testimony, which we will hear after you leave,
it's a no-win.
This is what he
No,
says.
you can't.
I never had any sexual
very
or
clever
physical
con
encounter
job.
of any kind with Dr. Ford. I am not questioning that Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. Last night, the Republican staff of this committee released to the media a timeline that shows that they've interviewed 2 people who claimed they were the ones who actually assaulted you. I'm asking you to address this new defense of mistaken.
They didn't say they believed them.
directly.
One was clearly a nut job.
Dr.
They've
Ford,
said so.
With what degree of certainty
People
do
looking
you
for
believe
fame.
Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
100%. In the letter which you sent to
The
Dr.
odds are
Feinstein,
going up.
Senator Feinstein, you wrote, I have not.
See, now what if
knowingly
Kavanaugh
sued
gets on
Kavanaugh
here,
since
says
the
you
assault.
didn't do this? 100,
I did
how
see
much
Mark
percent?
Judge once at the
100%.
Potomac Village Safeway,
Uh-oh, we have a
where he was
problem.
extremely uncomfortable in seeing me. Would you please describe that encounter at the Safeway with Mark Judge and what led you to believe he was uncomfortable?
Yes. I was going to the Potomac Village Safeway. This is the one on the corner of Falls and River Road. And I was with my mother, and I was a teenager, so I wanted her to go in one door and me go in the other. So I chose the wrong door
Remembers
because
that.
the door I chose was the one where Mark Judge was, looked like he was working there and arranging the shopping carts. And I said hello to him. And his face was white and very uncomfortable saying hello back. And we
Why
had
would she have said
previously
hello?
been friendly at the times that we saw each other over the previous 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Albeit not very many times. We had always been friendly with one another. I wouldn't characterize him as not friendly. He was just nervous and not really wanting to speak with me. And he looked a little bit ill.
How long did this occur after the incident?
I would estimate 6 to 8 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before we take a break, I can't let what Senator Durbin said. By the way, he's
From
my
this
friend.
station.
We work on a lot of legislation together. But you talked about the obstruction from the other side. I cannot let it go by what you've heard me say so many times, that between July 30th and September 13th, there were 45 days. This committee could have been investigating this situation.
Thank you.
And her privacy would have been protected. So something happened here in between on your side that the whole country, well, not the whole country should have known about it. No, not know about it. We should have investigated it. We'll take a break now for 15 minutes.
Oh, 15 minutes? All right, good. I got to get something to eat. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. So this has gotten rather interesting, hasn't it? Well, this is interesting, though. Well, we'll take a break from that. Good. That's perfect. So what did we learn, folks? Okay, what did we learn? Oh boy, oh boy. Here, let's let me. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna take a break here too because you know we were thinking about doing this today because I was gonna do it with the other Kavanaugh hearings and I didn't. It's like, oh, we should go live and just let's check it out and see. Because you know how thoughts come up all the time while you're watching stuff and then you forget them. But yeah, there was some things there. Just I don't know. This woman looked. I mean, aside from looking disheveled, and I know people will say, "Well, look what she's been through." Well, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough call because, I'm not here to insult her. Well, maybe just a little. I mean, I'll insult Kavanaugh too. I insult everybody. It's just it's equal opportunity, folks. Okay, but I think it's a con job. I think it is because we don't know what the hell this woman. I just when listening to her stories, you're like, well, I remember that 100%. I could sketch out the floor plan. Then I went to the store. I was with my mom. We went in this door. I wanted her to go there. And then they asked her something else. She's like, I'm not sure. And she's like, I'm not sure how I got home, but I'm quite sure I left and I heard conversations. I don't know what's going on here. And all this, painting the whole thing about, oh, yeah, they were laughing and giggling. I wonder, because we were all young ones, I sort of wonder if it wasn't as horrific and violent as she claims, and that perhaps if she was somehow enjoying it herself, they were all just giggling and having fun, and that she took this opportunity or her sessions with her psychotherapist, again, not an official medical person, cooked up some stuff in her head that she's not responsible for, but there it is. Oh, I think I remember now. Because, look, that guy said, this is what my sister does. She's a psychotherapist. And as I mentioned, she's essentially disowned the whole family because she blames everybody. This is what her particular thing was, regression therapy, which sounds similar to what this lady was going through. You go back in time, you find the people, your parents, whoever, however they raised you, whenever you were traumatized or felt unwanted, unneeded, whatever it was, time to get even. Blame them. It's their fault. Confront them with it. And, I was talking about the other day, how sometimes you recall something and then, your mother was a full-grown adult at the time and she'll be like, that's not what happened. And you're going, yes, it is. She's like, no, because remember this and this. And then you go, oh, yeah. Your memory can play tricks on you. So when it comes to stuff like this, I don't know. But, yeah, this was odd, what my sister did to the family. She just started blaming everybody. And for a while there, she had me on her side. Because, she'd talk to me all the time. Remember when they would do this? And I'm like, I think so. And then she almost had, I did. She had me turning on my family. Like, you guys. And then, so after a while, though, I started to think for myself, which is something that people should experience. And I was like, wait a second. Hold on a second. That's just, they just, parents and people are in your life, they're not all doing things for evil purposes. Sometimes it's just what they are, how they were raised. You want to talk about unfair and sort of what some would call seemingly harsh parenting. Well, there was a shitload of that stuff going on for centuries before, the 80s and the 90s. My God, we won a war and, 2 wars back in the times where a lot of times being a parent was a brutal job and you weren't the nicest parent, and there were all kinds of people who were, oh, my dad, oh, I better not say that. He'll knock me across the room. There were tons of that, tons of it. I mean, I knew someone growing up, and you'd always have things you want to do with your friends. Hey, can I spend the night? And he's like, no. My mom said no. Why? I don't know. But why? Ask her why. And he was like, no way. She'll knock me across the room. Okay, but they don't hate their parents. They're not going back at them and blaming them for, oh, you remember when you. So you see. Like I said, we've been through centuries and generations of parents that were really tough on kids. There wasn't always this touchy-feely stuff. And like I said, we won 2 wars with parents that were what we would call strict. They were just strict parents. They wanted you to do right. They wanted you to grow up proper, right, and not all this lazy, do whatever the fuck you want kind of stuff, which is what we have now. I kind of said, I was talking to actually a veteran the other day. I said, you know, if we had a draft nowadays with these young kids and their attitudes, you know how many freaking draft dodgers we'd have? They'd all be hauling ass to freaking Canada. No way, man. I'm not giving up my gaming time and shit like that. Are you kidding me? We'd be fucked. So it's a good thing that we do have a military and people, some parents who do still respect a certain way of raising children. That they're not just spoiling them and throwing them all these gadgets and shit. So, back to psychotherapy. You know, so like I said, that's the case. And then I came to my senses. I thought, well, this is dumb. No, hold on a second. And then I realized it was my sister who had put herself between, you know, she put herself between me and my mother. And I thought, wait, what are you talking about? You can't come down on her for that. It's just the way she believed, you know? Like one of my mom's big things was, you know, like school lunch. My parents never paid for my school lunches. So I used to, you know, all my friends, they had like hot lunch every day. That was like part of the family thing. Here, here's your lunch money. Here's your lunch money. Me? Oh, no, it was different. It was like, no, you want lunch? You can pay for it out of your allowance. But I only get $20 a month, and lunches are like 99 cents. Oh, well. What about magazines? Oh, well. So you see, I didn't really grow up learning, you know, anything about money, except for the fact that I didn't have any. So, and the other thing was, then here's the thing. Here was her counter argument, right? Well, then, if you want to eat, you make your own lunch and take it to school. Okay, I guess I could. Of course, we don't have any good shit in the fridge. It's all freaking make yourself a sandwich. So me, with my ADD and all this shit, you know, it was like, what? Oh, it's time for school. Oh, boy, I didn't do it. You know, they could have recognized that and maybe helped me out, but they didn't. Okay, this was the kind of stuff you went through in some families. It's like your parents, they didn't see this stuff. So, yeah, it would have been nice, you know, if I'd have had that part, you know. Well, of course. Now, my parents divorced when I was 7, see. So my dad, he was the opposite. My brother grew up with my father. Yeah, it was the opposite. It was like you didn't even need to discuss it. It was like, well, of course we pay for his lunches, which was what most of my friends had. It was like, well, of course we do. Why not? We want to have a hot lunch every day. My mom was different, you know. She was like, well, you know, you want that? You know, make your own. Michael, that's a lot of money. And it's like we weren't poor. This was like her way of teaching responsibility, which I thought was a bunch of shit, but here's how we're going to teach you is we're going to throw you to the fucking wolves. But look, you know, she grew up in England. Her father was really strict. She was sent north. She was really young when the bombing started. The Nazis, you know, were bombing Britain. And, you know, I remember my Nana telling me she was in the hospital while the bombs were dropping. But, you know, so it was a different time, you know, you can imagine, you know, maybe back then. So anyway, you can't get, you know, blame your parents and shit like that. You know, and then, you know, of course, they're getting older now. They're getting into the elderly years. And so eventually they're going to need your help. And so you just, you know, you wait. And then this is the time when you get even with them. Oh, you just wait, Mom. It's coming. I'm hungry. Well, get up and make yourself a sandwich or something. Huh? Why don't you do that? But I can't get up. Oh, well, you should have thought about that before. Oh, I remember one thing I used to say with my mom when I'd go, oh, that's not fair. And she'd go, life's not fair. You wait, you know. I can't get out of bed anymore. It's not fair. Well, life isn't fair, is it, Mom? That's... Oh, well. But yeah, when my father was, he was experiencing dementia and stuff like this, and I brought him out to the state where I lived, because he was having trouble. He was like running his car into shit and everything, and he thought everything was okay. I'm fine. I was like, no, you're not. So I brought him out here, set him up in a really nice retirement condo, and took the car away from him. But my dad was a real easygoing guy. I just made up a story because he would have killed somebody. I made up a story. I said, Dad, sorry, but in this state, if you've been diagnosed with dementia, you can't have a license. Oh, well, all right, there goes that. So, it would have been different if he was a combative type. Of course, I wouldn't have cared anyway. I would have still taken those fucking keys and... We're selling your car, Dad. Sorry. But, tough shit. And that's how I chose to handle it. Now, you got all these other elderly people driving around on the street and everybody going, oh, my God, these old people. Well, their kids should do them a favor, too. That's what I think that was my responsibility. I had to take him off the road. Otherwise, he was going to hurt somebody, hurt himself. And so that's just a choice I made, and that's how I handled it. My sister, otherwise... she chose to do something else. She chose to basically just say, he's an old coot. Screw you guys. You guys are crazy. And she just essentially didn't want anything to do with anybody. So, okay. So that's your psychotherapist for you, okay? That's the psychotherapist. So this is why I'm having a little bit of trouble with this woman and, all her accusations and memories. Oh, my psychotherapist did it. Like I said, remember, this isn't a psychologist and it's not a psychiatrist. This is a psychotherapist. That's what they do. They try to get inside your head and they try to, you remember this, don't you? No, they do. So I lived through it. And, but anyway, relations with my mom and my stepdad, everything, they're fine now. Now I've disowned my sister. Screw you, jerk. But I haven't disowned her. I just made it known that I don't appreciate what you did. So it's fine. It's fine. So anyway, that's just the way it is. That's what I see. So I'm a little skeptical about this woman, especially because she couldn't get her freaking hair out of her thingy. It's driving me nuts. What, are you some kind of nut? So, and all this stuff and the Democrats and, you got this Keith Ellison thing that they haven't said a freaking word about. Nobody has. Gillibrand is a complete nut job. And then you got, what's her name? Hirono. I'm Hirono from Hawaii. I'm really very inept and everything. And my anger doesn't really come off very well. She's one of my new impressions. I am Hirono. I am really, you men of the country, really, you need to shut up and step up. I said, yeah, well, you need to shut the fuck up and step down. I mean, she's just talking about, he doesn't deserve the rule of law. He is not presumed innocent. Huh? Isn't she, isn't she I'm pretty sure she's an attorney, or she was, it's like, were you kidding? Shame on you. All these people, they're just going, oh, I believe her. I believe her, but you don't believe him. He's had 6 FBI investigations. How many have you had? How many has this woman had? A 0. Like the way Judge Judy says it. A 0. A 0. Oh, yeah. Gotta check. Okay. All righty. Here we go. Are they back yet? Are they back yet? So, good God. I think I'm going to pause here and then reconnect. A lot going on. But anyway, you understand now why I do sort of question this woman. She looks a fright, and I'm not sure if she's that. It's some. Another thing about a psychotherapist you have to understand: they don't believe in medicine. Okay, they don't. They cannot give you pills. They can't prescribe anything because they're not a legitimate doctor. Psychiatrists, psychologists, on the other hand, okay, this is a different matter. Of course, they can. They deal in the mechanics of the brain, and they understand that the brain can break. You know, sometimes it doesn't work. That's why they do that, okay? So, there you go. All right, we're going to break, and then we'll come back with another stream when it starts again, Marge. 125. Oh, yeah, they'll be back in just a few minutes. So I'm going to disconnect, and I'll reconnect in a minute. All right. So we'll be back. Where'd it go? All right.